Picture this. You're in the middle of an argument. Not a bad one, the kind that every couple has, the kind that should be resolvable. And then, from somewhere you didn't see coming, his name enters the room. Not as an accusation, not even as a genuine comparison, just his name. A reference, a memory she didn't consciously decide to reach for. It arrived on its own, pulled up by stress, by frustration, by some associative trigger in her nervous system that you have no control over. And you feel it, that specific, cold drop in your chest that isn't quite jealousy and isn't quite anger. It's something worse. It's the feeling of competing with someone who isn't even in the room, someone who, by every objective measure, treated her worse than you do, someone who disappeared, who let her down, who she has described to you in moments of honesty as someone she is glad she left. And yet, here he is, in your argument, in your relationship, taking up space he was never invited into. Here's what nobody tells you, my friend. You are not losing to him. You are losing to a version of him that exists only in the edited, emotionally reconstructed archive of her memory, a version that has been quietly improved every time she recalled it, stripped of its worst moments, and preserved in the specific amber of intense emotional experience. You cannot beat him with better behavior. You cannot outperform a ghost. You cannot win a comparison against a memory that has been rewritten so many times it no longer resembles the man who actually lived it. What I'm about to tell you will make you uncomfortable. It contradicts everything you were told about how respect is earned, how love works, and what it means to be a good partner. But it is the truth. And the truth, as always, is the only thing that will make sense of what you've been experiencing. Let's talk about how memory actually works, because this is where everything you think you know falls apart. You were taught, implicitly, culturally, everywhere, that memory is a recording, that the brain stores experiences the way a camera stores images, faithfully, accurately, permanently, that what she remembers about him is approximately what actually happened. This is one of the most consequential lies in modern psychology. The human brain does not store memories like a camera. It reconstructs them every single time they are accessed. Neuroscientists call this process memory reconsolidation. Each time a memory is recalled, the brain essentially rebuilds it from available emotional and contextual fragments, and in the rebuilding, it changes, subtly, consistently, in a specific direction. The direction is this. The brain prioritizes emotional intensity over factual accuracy. It preserves the peaks, the highest highs and the lowest lows, and it smooths out, compresses, and eventually discards the mundane. The ordinary Tuesday, the unremarkable weekend, the forgettable afternoon. What does this mean for her memory of him? Every fight that didn't end in explosion has been fading for years. Every mediocre evening, every moment of boredom, every time he failed to show up in the small ways, compressed, dimmed, filed in the archive of the forgettable. What remains, preserved in neurological high definition, are the moments of intensity, the passion, the reconciliation after the fight, the uncertainty that kept her nervous system engaged, the electricity of a relationship that made her feel, above all else, that something significant was happening. Her ex was not better than you. He was louder in her nervous system. He produced more neurological noise. And noise, in the ancient biological accounting of significance, is indistinguishable from importance. Meanwhile, you, consistent, present, emotionally available, are being evaluated in real time. Every ordinary moment fully visible, none of it softened by the mercy of distance, none of it reconstructed by the editing process of nostalgic memory. You are competing with a highlight reel, using an unedited live feed. This is not her fault. This is not a character failure. This is the specific, documented, peer-reviewed output of a brain that evolved to learn from emotionally intense experiences. Because in the ancient environment, emotional intensity was a reliable signal of survival relevance. He wasn't better for her. He was simply louder. And loud, in biology, wins the memory competition every single time. Now let's get precise about the psychological machinery, because there are two specific cognitive mechanisms at work here, and once you understand them, the behavior that has been confusing you will become completely, painfully transparent. The first is called Rosy retrospection. It is one of the most extensively documented cognitive biases in psychological literature. The finding: humans consistently and predictably rate past experiences more positively after time has passed than they rated them while the experiences were actually occurring. The vacation you complained about becomes the best trip you ever took. The job you quit in frustration becomes the one you reference with nostalgia. The relationship that ended in pain becomes, given enough time and enough distance, the one she describes as the most real thing she ever felt. This is not selective memory. This is systematic memory reconstruction. It happens to everyone. It is happening to her right now. And it means that the version of him she carries is not the man who actually existed. It is the version her brain has been quietly improving every time she accessed the file. The second mechanism is the peak end rule. Research by psychologist Daniel Kahneman demonstrated that the human brain evaluates experiences almost entirely based on two data points: the most emotionally intense moment, the peak, and how the experience ended. The duration, the consistency, the overall quality, these factors contribute almost nothing to how the experience is ultimately assessed and remembered. Think about what this means for her reconstruction of that relationship. The peak, the moments of highest emotional intensity, passion, jealousy, reconciliation, the specific electricity of loving someone who made her uncertain, preserved perfectly, weighted enormously. The end, how it ended, which, if it ended without complete closure, without her fully processing the grief, creates an open loop, an unresolved narrative that the brain keeps returning to, keep trying to close. You are not competing against a man. You are competing against her brain's most emotionally charged, most carefully preserved, most systematically idealized experiential file. I want to give you a case study. Call him Connor. Connor had been with his girlfriend for 14 months. Before him, a 2-year relationship with someone she described as emotionally unavailable, inconsistent, occasionally cruel. Connor was none of those things. He was present, communicative. He remembered things. He showed up. 6 months in, she started referencing the ex in passing. Not romantically, just present. The ex's opinion on something. What the ex would have done in a certain situation. Connor, confused, worked harder, was more present, more available, more everything. 8 months in, during an argument that had nothing to do with the ex, she said, "He at least never made me feel like I was too much." Connor had never made her feel that way either. But in the neurological filing system of her reconstructed memory, the ex, stripped of his actual behaviors and preserved only in his most intense moments, had become a benchmark that no real, present, visible human being could match. Because the benchmark was not a person. It was a memory, edited, improved, untestable by reality. You need to stop here, and you need to recognize these patterns, because they are operating around you right now, and every wrong response you give is deepening the trap. 1. His name appears during arguments, not as a deliberate weapon, as a neurological retrieval. Stress and emotional activation pull up emotionally coded memories. When she is upset, her brain reaches for its most intense emotional files. He is in those files. You are not yet, because your relationship has not yet produced the kind of intense emotional imprinting that stress retrieval accesses. This is not about him. It is about which files are loudest under pressure. 2. She defends him to her friends, years later, long after any practical reason to defend him has expired. Her brain has filed him as a significant investment. Significant investments require justification. The defense is not affection. It is the cognitive dissonance reduction of a brain that spent enormous emotional resources on something and needs those resources to have been worth spending. 3. She compares your reactions to his, but never fairly. She compares your worst moments to his reconstructed best. She compares your real, visible, unedited responses to his memory-smoothed, intensity-preserved, peak-selected highlights. You cannot win this comparison. It is not designed to be winnable. It is designed neurologically to protect the significance of a major past investment. 4. She romanticizes the struggle of the old relationship. The making up after the fight, the intensity of missing him when he disappeared, the specific feeling of relief when he returned. She does not consciously connect these feelings to the chaos that produced them. She has separated the emotion from its cause, and the emotion, preserved without its source, reads simply as passion, as aliveness, as the thing she felt then that she is not certain she feels now. Here's a second case study. Call him Marcus. Marcus met his partner 2 years after her exit from a 5-year relationship. The ex had been brilliant and volatile, the kind of man who produced enormous highs and devastating lows in roughly equal measure. She had left him. She was clear she did not want him back. She was equally clear, in 100 small ways, that the emotional vocabulary of that relationship was still the language her nervous system spoke most fluently. Marcus watched, over 18 months, as he gradually modified every authentic response he had in order to not become the villain. He became quieter when he had opinions, more agreeable when he disagreed, more careful, more managed, more performed. And she became, paradoxically, less engaged with him. Not because she wanted the ex, because the man she had chosen was disappearing, replaced by a careful performance of acceptability that her nervous system experienced not as safety, but as absence. The warning sign Marcus missed. Every time he suppressed an authentic response to avoid comparison, he was removing the only thing he had that the ex could never offer: a real, present, unedited human being who actually existed in the room. 5. She describes him as someone who really knew her, despite the fact that the man she is describing no longer exists, if he ever fully did. This is the peak end rule in its most complete form. The relationship is now defined entirely by its most intense moments. The knowing she remembers is the knowing that comes from intensity, from being fought for, from being pursued, from the specific intimacy of surviving chaos together. She has not yet experienced, or has not yet recognized, that the knowing available through consistent, present, real-time intimacy is deeper than anything intensity alone can produce. Let's talk about why this trap was built. Because it was built. Not by any single architect, but by the accumulated output of a culture that spent decades romanticizing intensity while systematically devaluing presence. Romantic media constructed the template. Every film, every novel, every song that defined what love is supposed to feel like selected for the same emotional signature: longing, uncertainty, the push and pull of someone who makes you feel simultaneously chosen and at risk. The grand gesture after the disappearance, the reconciliation after the fight, the electric, impossible, slightly dangerous love that asks everything of you and guarantees nothing in return. This is not a coincidence. Intensity is narratively interesting. Consistency is not. You cannot build a 2-hour film around a man who shows up reliably and communicates clearly. You can build an entire culture's romantic imagination around a man who leaves and returns and makes her feel alive in the specific, addictive way that uncertainty produces. The therapeutic industry then entered with the second half of the problem. It correctly identified that many women's attraction to chaos and intensity was a pattern rooted in early emotional experiences: attachment wounds, familiarity with inconsistency, the conflation of anxiety with love. It told them this was a trauma response to heal. What it failed to provide was a neurological substitute. It removed the diagnosis: you are attracted to unavailability because of your history, without replacing the fuel. And the fuel, as we now understand, was the dopamine of uncertainty, the norepinephrine of threat detection, the specific neurological cocktail of a relationship that kept the nervous system engaged. The culture then built the comparison infrastructure. Social media ensured that no past relationship is ever truly past. The X exists in the algorithm, in mutual friends' posts, in the occasional story, in the digital archaeology of a relationship that ended but never fully disappeared. The curated highlight reel of his life, seen through the lens of Rosy Retrospection and the peak end rule, is neurologically indistinguishable from genuine desirability. And into this landscape walked the good man, told to be better, told to be everything the ex wasn't, told that consistent, present, emotionally available behavior would win the battle. Nobody told him that better and memorable are not the same word. Nobody told him that the nervous system does not file experiences under better, it files them under intense and forgettable, and that every behavior optimized for her comfort was, neurologically, a behavior optimized for the forgettable file. Here is what the destruction looks like from inside it. The good man, the one who showed up, who was present, who was everything the ex wasn't, begins to lose the battle by increments. Not dramatically, not in a single moment, in the specific, slow erosion of a man who is trying to win a war he does not fully understand against an enemy he cannot see. He starts modifying his authentic responses. He suppresses the disagreements that might make him seem difficult. He manages his emotions with a precision that reads, beneath the surface, as the specific anxiety of a man who is afraid to be himself. He becomes more careful, more measured, more constructed. And in becoming more constructed, he becomes less present. Because presence, real, human, unedited presence, requires the willingness to be imperfect in real time, to have opinions that might land wrong, to feel things that don't fit neatly into the narrative of the better man. She begins to feel something she cannot articulate. Not that he is bad, not that she doesn't love him, but that there is something slightly unreal about him, a quality of performance beneath the consistent goodness that her nervous system registers as absence rather than safety. She misses something she cannot name, and because the most emotionally available file in her memory that relates to the feeling of aliveness in a relationship belongs to the ex, that is where her mind goes. Not because she wants him, because her brain is searching for the reference point of feeling fully, electrically present with another person, and the only stored example it has for that feeling is him. He senses the distance. He tries harder, more presence, more effort, more demonstrations of how much better he is. Each additional effort confirms what her nervous system is quietly registering. He is performing. He is afraid. He is optimizing his behavior around her comfort rather than living authentically inside his own character. And the comparison sharpens. Not because the ex was better, but because in her reconstructed memory, the ex at least appeared to live from the inside out, from his own character, his own standards, his own reality, rather than performing a version of himself designed to secure her approval. The collapse, when it comes, sounds like this. I love you, but I don't feel the same way I used to. I don't know why. You've done everything right. She is telling the truth, and the truth, as always, is the most precise diagnosis available. He did everything right. He just did it wrong. This is the part where I need you to sit with something genuinely uncomfortable. Respect is not produced by good behavior. Read that again, brother, because it contradicts everything you were told, everything you were raised to believe, everything the culture handed you as the operating manual for being a man worth loving. Respect is not produced by good behavior. Respect is produced by the choice to behave well from a position of genuine power. Think about this carefully. A man who treats a woman with care and consideration because he is afraid of losing her, because she is his entire emotional world, because he has no alternatives, because he cannot afford to do otherwise, is not producing respect. He is producing accommodation. She receives his goodness the way you receive good service at a restaurant, gratefully, comfortably, without particular admiration for the person delivering it. A man who treats a woman with care and consideration despite having the power, the options, the internal authority not to, that man produces something completely different. Because the goodness is now legible as a choice, as something given from surplus rather than from scarcity, as a decision made by someone who could have decided differently. This is the bitter truth that the ex, with all his flaws, accidentally embodied in her memory. She does not remember him as someone who treated her well. She remembers him as someone who chose her from a position she perceived as power. Whether that power was real or performed, or simply the byproduct of his indifference is irrelevant. The neurological impact was the same. He appeared to have options. He appeared to be choosing her rather than needing her. And in that appearance, real or not, was the seed of the respect she has carried for him long past the point where the relationship deserved it. Here is the final case study. Call him Thomas. Thomas spent 3 years being the best partner he knew how to be. Patient, generous, present. He had internalized completely the belief that consistent love would eventually produce the respect and desire he was looking for. He was wrong. Not because his love was insufficient, but because his love was indistinguishable, in its presentation, from need. He loved her with the specific energy of a man who could not afford to lose her. And she felt that energy every day. And what it communicated to her nervous system, beneath all the warmth and care, was this: I have no power here. I am hoping my goodness is enough. Goodness is never enough when it is the only leverage you have. The bitter truth is not that you need to be worse. The bitter truth is that you need to be good from a different place. From a place that has options. From a place that has a self that would survive her absence. From a place that chooses her. Every day, visibly, explicitly. Not from fear, but from genuine selection. That is the difference between the man she accommodates and the man she respects. So what do you actually do with this? Let me be precise, because there is a wrong way to apply everything I've just told you, and the wrong way will make everything worse. The wrong way is to become worse, to manufacture unavailability, to perform indifference, to try to replicate the ex's chaos in a deliberate, strategic way. This is the counterfeit solution, and it fails for the same reason all counterfeits fail. The nervous system detects the performance. She has already experienced the real version of that energy, the genuine, unperformed unavailability of a man who actually didn't prioritize her. Performed unavailability is not the same signal. It reads, to the pattern-reading brain, as exactly what it is: a man pretending to have power he doesn't actually possess. The real framework is this, and it has 5 parts. First, stop competing with the ghost. I mean this literally. Every time you respond to his name in an argument, every time you defend yourself against the comparison, every time you present evidence of your superiority, you are doing something neurologically devastating. You are confirming that you perceive him as a threat worth competing with. You are giving the memory the one thing that makes it more powerful than reality: your acknowledgement that it matters. The man secure in his own value does not compete with ghosts. He does not explain why he is better. He does not present evidence. He is simply, fully, undeniably present. And presence, real presence, is the only thing that can eventually displace a memory. Not by beating it, by making it irrelevant. Second, build genuine power, within yourself, not over her. Not financial power, not social performance. The specific power that comes from a man who has a life, a direction, a set of standards, and an identity that would survive this relationship's end. When you have that, when it is real, when it is visible, when she can feel it in the quality of your presence, your goodness toward her becomes legible as a choice, as something given from a man who could have given it elsewhere, who is choosing to give it here. That is the power the ex appeared to have. That is the power you need to actually possess. Third, create your own neural imprints. Not through drama, not through chaos, but through the kind of memorable presence that comes from a man who is fully, authentically himself. Have opinions and express them. Disagree when you disagree. Make decisions from your own judgment rather than from the management of her comfort. Lead, not aggressively, with the specific, quiet authority of someone who knows where he is going and invites rather than follows. The brain files these moments differently than it files consistent warmth. Consistent warmth is safety. Authentic, present, occasionally challenging realness is significance. Both are necessary, but significance is what creates the neural imprints that compete with his. Fourth, let her feel that she has chosen you. This is subtle but critical. The respect she carries for the ex is, in significant part, the respect that comes from having chosen someone who appeared to have options. someone she felt she won, rather than someone who fell into her life out of relief that she said yes. Create the conditions for genuine choice. Maintain your own life, your own standards, your own direction, so that her decision to be with you is a decision she makes against a backdrop of real alternatives. Not performed alternatives, real ones. A man with genuine direction does not need to manufacture options. His life produces them naturally. And a woman who chooses a man she knows she had to choose, rather than a man she knows would accept anyone's choice, experiences the relationship as something she actively wanted, something worth respecting. Fifth, and this is the most important one, stop trying to be better than him. Become so fully, unapologetically, authentically yourself that the comparison never forms. This is not about winning. It is about the specific, powerful reality of a man who has stopped orienting his existence around someone else's past, who has stopped modifying his authentic responses to avoid unfavorable comparison, who has stopped performing goodness and started simply being, with all the imperfection, all the genuine opinion, all the real human presence that comes from a man who knows who he is and has stopped apologizing for it. That man does not compete with memories. He does not compete with ghosts. He is too fully, solidly, specifically present to be compared to anything that exists only in the past. She does not need you to be better than him, my friend. She needs you to be so completely, powerfully, authentically yourself, choosing her every day from a position of genuine strength, that the memory of him becomes what it always actually was, a ghost. And ghosts, in the presence of the living, eventually lose their power. Start there. Start with that.